Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Galant Bodybuilding Mountain. And today I'm going to do some bench and some Romanian deadlifts, as well as some leg curls, standing leg curl. I got a new piece of equipment here I'm doing some leg curls with. And then I'll do some calves, probably off camera, because I do them on my stairs and you can't really capture it that well on camera. So it's just one-legged calf raises, so I'm sure you guys aren't interested in seeing that. But one thing I want to say is that you're going to find that there's going to be certain principles that really work well for you, but they only work at certain times. So for instance, there's always the story of somebody saying when they worked out less or they took several weeks off training, they came back stronger than ever before, right? And so the false leap of logic that people make from that is that they should always take 2 weeks off and then they'll always come back stronger than ever before. But the reason why the 2 weeks off worked was because the person was overtrained or overreaching in their training ahead of time. So really what my point is that there are certain ideas that you will come up with that seem to make sense at the time, but you have to take all the variables into consideration. So if training once every 2 or 3 weeks was the perfect way to train, then all the pros would be doing that, right? And I would have done that in order to win the national title and in order to get second in the Natural Olympia and second in the Natural Universe and third in the Pro Natural Universe, right? I did all that, but I didn't do it from training once every 2 weeks, right? So all I'm going to say is that I'm not saying to second guess yourself, right? But what I'm saying is to try to look at a lot of the different variables of why a certain technique may have worked for you at a certain time or not. And therefore you gain more wisdom. Therefore you start to understand why things are working. And then when you know the why, then you can start to become very creative with what you're doing with your body because you're more in tune with how it functions. And again, it is going to be different for you than perhaps somebody else. Like I just did that arm video, and I talked in the arm video about me having to use a little bit of body English to get past a certain sticking point and also to overcompensate for my laxity in the shoulders and so forth. And I felt that this small deviation in form was actually helping me put more tension on the bicep, right, than say using really strict form. But then there's some people in the comments, they're saying really strict form helps them put more tension on the bicep. And for these people, I would say, okay, then strict form is the way you should be doing the exercise, you see? So it's amazing, like once you start to understand what's happening and why, it really helps you get rid of this fanatical thinking because you'll realize that depending on circumstance will depend on what is the best option or best technique or way of doing something for you, right? And so as much as I have to field so much troll type comments, there was another comment that was made, but before I get into that, as much as I have to field so much comments that are from trolls that don't understand what I'm saying, I mean, they just project what they think I'm saying instead of really listening to me. You know, so there's a lot of negativity all the time. It feels like you're going on stage and you're constantly getting just the eggs thrown at you, right? So sometimes going on stage is not so much fun when all it is just a shit show of eggs. But the truth is that there's a lot of you that I have gathered that are really deepening your self-knowledge on the physical level. You're really saying, okay, what is it that makes this body tick? Why is it different than, you know, the other dude in the gym? And why am I functioning this way? And why am I not meeting this expectation? Or maybe I shouldn't be meeting a certain expectation, right? Because meeting of some expectations, bodybuilding standards, the meeting of some of these bodybuilding standards or exercise standards might actually be harming you, not helping you, right? So I think I'm probably one of the only channels talking about this. I mean, I'm sure there are some out there, but I'm probably one of the only ones that are really driving this home. And so it's been a blessing to collect a certain amount of open-minded, wise individuals, you know, just so that we can collaborate. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always interested in finding out what works for you. I'm always interested in figuring out, you know, let's just say the wide diversity of techniques and things that seem to be working. And sometimes we might not know why at the moment, but in time, sometimes that reason reveals itself. So yeah, through conversations like this, I think that you can grow in wisdom at a much faster rate instead of just arguing about which training system is the best one, or, you know, somebody basically arguing through some sort of study that they misinterpreted or whatever, right? So let's do a warm-up set, and I'll talk about one of the troll comments I just got recently. So again, it'll connect to what I just said quite well. Yeah. So one of the comments I got, and I could tell by the way this guy worded this comment that he was not a fan, right? Anyway, he said that basically, he said, Jason, just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't make them sheep, right? And I would say that is true. And so whatever I said in this previous video, you have to take everything into context, which is why I like it when people watch the entirety of a video rather than just take the title and comment or whatever. Or just watch a clip, you know, 10 or 20 seconds, and then they're right there, you know, typing to me. But I will say sometimes, depending on circumstance, right? Everything depends on context and circumstance. When people disagree with me, in some cases, it does mean they're sheep. And the cases are when they are just regurgitating what they've been told instead of what they've realized. Right? So say they're in the gym and they're saying, hey, this technique or bench press technique or whatever it is that they're doing, you know, has gotten them a certain amount of results, so much so that they won national titles like I have. You know, they gained a lot of muscle, they got down to 4% body fat, like they did all these things, right? They accomplished all these things. And I'm saying that technique never works. Well, then they're not sheep, because if they disagree with me, it's because they actually had an experience that proved I was wrong, right? But a lot of times I find with this internet age, people read something, they decide whether to agree with it or disagree, and then they fight with somebody who's actually gotten proven results, more results than they have, and say that this thing they read is more true. I would say that person is more sheep. They're more in alliance with the sheep sort of side of things, you know? So I'm really saying, for the record, that whatever works is the truth for you. And why would somebody disagree with me about that? You know what I'm saying? If they're disagreeing, it's because they're holding on to some idealism. And that is what makes them sheep. Because they're holding on because they're emotionally insecure about something, and they're just, you know, they're afraid that maybe they're wrong. Yeah, then you're probably closer to a sheep person, you know? So it's amazing, you know? It's amazing how much people resist freedom. That's one thing I will say. It's a very surprising thing, but it threads through everything. You'll notice that people are afraid of freedom. And when you say, hey, what you're doing is working, and yeah, keep doing that, sometimes they'll resent you for it. It's the strangest thing. But anyway, that's an interesting sort of calamity that is the internet, right? So yeah, I'm going to do another warm-up set of 225, and then I'm going to move to 275 to see if I gained a rep or so on the bench. We'll see. I think my record is 14 now, at least my recent record. I used to do a little bit more on a different bench at another gym. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I win up. All right, 2 plates just to warm up. I'm just getting the blood going in the shoulders here. Get everything going. Feels light today. Definitely feels light. I don't know Whether somebody turned the gravity off or what? Somebody turned the gravity off. You guys turn the gravity off? So I'm going to move to 275 and see what I can do. So yeah, my theme for this video, as it is for every video, is dare to be different. And then you might find out that you're the same as, a lot of people, right? But you were too busy listening to the loudest people instead of realizing that there are other people that are similar to you that get results from similar techniques, actually. You might find out that you are more right than you know when it comes down to a type of training system or range of motion that is working for you. So yeah, always the warning sign. If your joints are dying on you, then something needs to change. If you're not getting any results, something needs to change, right? It's pretty simple, isn't it? You just have to have the courage to find out and to conduct the experiment and stick with it. Stick with the training for long enough to find out. I find a lot of people, they don't stick to training consistently. They'd rather say, oh yeah, training just doesn't work for me. I've got bad genetics. My dad was built like a penguin, something like that, right? and sure, yeah, genetics can hold you back. I'm not saying they don't, but the truth is that I found that you can always improve in some way. I'm not saying you're going to look like Mr. Olympia, but you can improve. And improvement only happens through consistency over time. And you see it with great artists, people who are gifted with the ability to draw. Well, you find out usually they spent 20 or 30 years drawing and sketching and working on their art. It's really the same thing with training. It's a matter of meeting the weights, meeting the gym on a daily basis or semi-daily basis. I mean, of course, you need some time off, some days off and recover and so forth. And then dare to conduct experiments rather than get caught in a maze that other people are running in. Actually conduct these experiments, find out what range of motion is working for each exercise for you. Rather than applying blanket statements like full range and everything, no matter what, right? Or partial range and everything, no matter what. It's like, no, like I said, it always depends on context and circumstance. Sometimes the knees can go over the toes. Sometimes they shouldn't. And for each person, those parameters will be different, right? And I'm talking about squats, of course, or lunges or these types of things. So yeah, it's one of those things where I find a lot of people are so busy trying to be like other people that they forget to be who they are. They forget to be what they are. They forget to embrace what is really here. I could talk to you all day long about, like say I could put myself into a category of a 6'5" person, right? And complain about the fact that I cannot traverse 6 or 7 stairs at once when I'm climbing the steps, right? Because my legs aren't long enough. I could beat myself to death about that, or I can embrace the reality that I'm 5'8" and I can take 2 or 3 stairs at a time, not 6, So it just creates insanity to not embrace your body as it is and then make changes that are realistic, not unbelievably stupid, right? So yeah, that's the nice thing about pain. It teaches you what is the right thing and what's not, right? Anyway, let's go to 275 and give her shit. Well, I lost 1 rep on the bench, but one thing I have to say is that I only had oatmeal yesterday for carbs in the morning and a bit of blueberries, and the rest of the day I went straight protein. So that's the thing. Carbs do affect strength when you don't have a ton of them, but at the same time, they also affect fat deposition, right? So I thought, I'm getting a little bit fatter. I have to kind of cut back a little bit on the carbs. So that's really, that'll make a difference, here and there. But in the end, you have to kind of make these decisions, right? So yeah, I mean, if you want to be a fat bastard, your bench will go up. But the thing is that I don't feel comfortable being fat, just putting fat on just for the sake of increasing a couple reps on the bench, as much as it's fun, right? So that's why you'll see a lot of these big benchers. A lot of them have the huge guts and shit, like the powerlifting guys. But ideally, you know, that's not really what I want to do, is just to get fat for the sake of a bench press. But yeah, I mean, you want to get stronger, of course, too, though, but you don't want to do it just because you're putting on more and more and more and more body fat. So yeah, I lost a rep, but that's okay. I'm sure the day that I do more carbs, then I'll have 14 reps again. And a lot of times you'll notice that sometimes the range of motion will change depending on how I feel. It felt pretty good today, just that range. Sometimes I come down a little bit deeper, sometimes I don't, but it just whatever range feels like I'm locked in the best, you know. In the end, you're just here to stimulate the muscle. You're not necessarily here to, you know, touch your chest with a bar or not. I mean, unless of course that feels better. But for me, because my delts kind of sit forward because of the, you know, you guys already know the hockey injuries I had. It's just better for me to use the range of motion that I'm using. It just feels better. It feels great on the pecs. It feels great on the tendons. Feels great on the joints. You know, so that's what I'm going with. But yeah, I'm just going to do 2 more sets of this, and then I'll be done. And then I'm going to go into some Romanian deadlifts. So somebody in the comments asked me if you can train the same exercise 2 days in a row. And I'll say that you can. Of course you can. Do you want to all the time? I would probably not recommend that because remember, recovery does matter. But at the same time, for short periods of time, you can purposely overtrain in order to break through a plateau. And I have noticed that, you know, doing whole body workouts, you know, similar exercises, even with moderately lightweight or lighter weight that I usually use, it can have a tremendous benefit for pumping the blood through the body, increasing energy production. Probably has something to do with the mitochondria and the creatine cycle or whatever. But the bottom line is I feel like I have more energy and more motivation to train. And then of course, after I take a day off, then I come back, I can go heavier and my groove is really good. And you know, you're working on a certain pathway. But if you do it too much, you will burn out. That's all I can say. A lot of times people will burn out and you just have to look for the signs of that. But in the end, you have to conduct your own experiments and your own experiences around that, because you know what will make somebody overtrain might not make you overtrain. You know, it's just a matter of listening to the body and finding out. But yeah, I've worked with high frequency and super high frequency training, and it does work. It's great. But it's just if you do too much volume or you do too heavy, then you're going to be in for a problem, right? And I think that's where people sometimes make the mistake. They think I'm going to go, you know, 5 rep maxes, you know, on my bench or my squat or whatever, and I'm going to do it 2 days in a row. And I'm like, no, that would not be the right way to do it. The right way to do it would be like, say you do heavy the first day for a couple sets or a few sets. Obviously your volume would be lower because you're training it each day. Then the next day you would do, you know, 15, 20 reps or higher reps type sets. You wouldn't stay in the 5 rep category, or at least I wouldn't recommend that, you know. It would be more ideal for you to use that high frequency to change up the rep ranges and hit the different muscle fibers instead of sticking with one pathway, right? And overtraining the crap out of it. Yeah, that's my 2 cents anyway. So you could try whatever way you want, but some ways will snap you and some ways won't. That's the truth, you know. So yeah. So here we go, another set. All right, so now I'm going to do some Romanian deadlifts. Like I said, I'm a man of my word. I said I'm going to do them, so I'm going to do them. But another thing that somebody mentioned in the comments was, why don't you go all the way down, right? So they're saying, you know, touch your toes and come up and stuff. And I've seen guys tear hamstrings like crazy, right? So the thing is that more stretch doesn't always mean more stretch on the muscle belly. A lot of times what happens, the muscle will go to the extended range and then the tendons will start to stretch. And then of course, in a bad circumstance, something will pop. The other thing I see people do is the stiff-legged deadlifts. What they'll do is they'll lock the knees and then they'll round the lower back and then stretch all the way down. And you know, some people this might work okay for, but for most people, if you start rounding the lower back, not only do you take away the stretch on the hamstring belly, but you also put more stress on the discs and ligaments in the lower back. And that's a lot of times how a lot of disc herniations happen, right? So, you know, the thing is, you can turn every exercise into yoga, but turning it into yoga doesn't make it more effective. That's all I'm going to tell you, right? There's a little bit too much of this obsession with excessive stretch. And then, of course, people say, well, what do you think about constant tension under stretch and this whole fad or, you know, thing that's coming out that people are talking about? Well, I've been doing constant tension under stretch my whole life. That's where I found the most effective muscle gains happened. But stretching of a muscle doesn't necessarily mean full range of motion around the joint, right? I mean, we know this. If somebody's inflexible, let's just take worst case scenario. If somebody is inflexible, they're still stretching the muscle even if they're not going full range of motion, right? Good. So based on that, if the muscle is stretched or experiencing a stretching sensation, then it will naturally gain muscle or gain some sort of benefit. And of course, flexibility can be a side effect over time. But if you're noticing that your flexibility is increased to a certain point, but past a certain point, you're just getting stress on the tendons, that's not a good range of motion to weight train with. And a lot of beginners and a lot of intermediate people are misunderstanding this, and they're going to find out the reality of it, in a really aggressive way, right? And the reality is they're going to get an injury. That's the bottom line. So there's efficient ways to lift weight using a stretch on the muscle belly, and then there's inefficient ways to lift the weight where you're so obsessed with the stretch that you're not noticing where the stretch is impacting the body, right? And if it's already impacting a weak area, like the tendons are the weak link a lot of times, right? And then you're pulling on them excessively, at some point, if you're feeling the stress in the tendons, you're going to snap something. That's just the way it is. So, you know, believe it or not, but in the end, I'd rather let other people snap their stuff, and I'm not going to snap mine. And I find that I get awesome hamstring results from doing Romanian deadlifts this way, right? So I just bring the bar down to the knees, you know, that's it, and then up. And I keep constant tension, right? So I might come just to here and then down, here and down, just pump that constant tension, right? That's that constant tension under stretch, instead of just locking out at the top. There's no reason for me to lock out at the top. There's no reason. It just fatigues the lower back more. And my whole point is to make sure that those hamstrings hit failure as fast as possible. That's how I do it. So yeah, here's first set of warm-ups, and then we'll move up. All right, last set of these, and then I'll finish it off with a set of leg curls. Just a set. You know, like I said, you don't have to do tons of volume. You can get a good reaction out of the body without a lot of volume, right? But yeah, I'll do some leg curls and then I'm going to do some calves off camera. But yeah, low volume works. You don't have to do a ton of volume in order to get the body to adapt, right? It's more about how intense is it on you or on the muscle. And I'd rather do less volume and meet the gym more often than do a massive amount of volume than take days off, because I find my body starts to adapt to the days off more aggressively than the training. So it's better for me to do smaller workouts more often than have a big workout and then take a whole week off. I find that method, although appealing to me, doesn't produce the results for myself. I find, if anything, my body becomes very lethargic, and it's almost like I need to stay in the second wind area more often than, some people, they say they're getting a second wind when they start doing some jogging or they warm up or playing a sport. And then after they've been doing the sport for 20 minutes or something like that, then they seem to get a second wind, and it's almost like their real energy system kicks on. That seems to happen with me when I regularly train as opposed to taking time off. It's like when I take too much time off, my body gets stagnant. And I've tried it lots of times. Like, trust me, I've tried it. And sometimes by accident, taking time off because of, injuries back in the day from bar fights and whatever else. And yeah, when I took a month off training, it felt like I was, walking in quicksand when I came back, to try to get the body's groove back and to get the blood flowing and to get the motivation, so yeah, but everybody's different, right? So that's the other characteristic of yourself you have to figure out. And if you're, really honest with yourself, not talking about mental motivation or not, but actually feeling what the body naturally gets revved up by, or gets, let's just say, stimulated by, and it almost feels like you build momentum. There'll be certain ways of training that seem to do that. And that's really not something a lot of people really investigate. That's what I can say. They just follow the templates, and then when they can't maintain whatever template they have, then they're like, oh, okay, there must be something wrong with me. Well, sometimes that's the case. If it's a mental issue, maybe you have a mental motivation issue, or you have an aversion to pain, all that. But the other thing is that there is a way to access the body's ideal amount of energy through the ideal way of training. And some people do this through taking lots of rest from the gym, and other people, they do it through regularity. And I found myself that regular training, even if it's less, is more productive than everything, like the whole bunch of training and then no training. I find that that's the worst thing for me. So yeah, you just got to figure it out, right? All right, last set of these. So you're probably wondering how I'm going to do leg curls. Now there's two ways I can do leg curls at home now. One is the TRX strap, where basically I lay on the floor, hook both feet in, and I do a hip extension as well as a leg curl at the same time. And it's actually pretty good. I mean, it's one of those movements that includes both the hips and the movement around the knees as well. So it's a great hamstring movement actually. But you might be challenged as far as like, how do you increase the weight or increase the tension? And sometimes that can be a bit challenging. Also, sometimes laying on a floor in a garage is not so fun, because the floor is just always getting dirty from the cat or the car coming in and out and whatever. So it's like, I'm not that finicky when it comes down to making a mess, but at the same time, sometimes you don't want to lay on the floor. So what I have is another attachment. I have something that's an attachment. It attaches to a dumbbell and then attaches to my foot. I mean, there's a couple of different products on the market you can get for this. But anyway, I'm just going to do lightweight leg curls with the 15 pounders. That's all I'm doing. I'm just doing the constant tension, just leg bicep workout. And from my experiments with this, as opposed to using a machine at the gym, I would say the machine at the gym, in a lot of cases, is superior for pushing into failure because it's constant tension. A lot of those machines all the way through the range, not just mostly when you're all the way up, you know what I'm saying? So this is, you know, it's a dumbbell, right? Dumbbells will feel different at different parts of the range of motion. It'll be different than using a cam or a pulley. But at the same time, I do find it's a great finishing move because you do definitely get a lot of hamstring activation in a different way than you do with deadlifts and so forth. So yeah, so let's do a set with these or whatever, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now the funny thing is, you'll find that I like to bend over like this because when you bend over at the hip, you actually stretch the hamstrings a bit. But it just feels like I also put myself just in the right position. I just like that, so you'll see me do that. So here we go. I like to do constant tension, not touching my foot to the floor. So it's like a concentration curl to a point, you know. Like anything though, you got to get used to it. I've only been doing this a few times, so. But like I said, it's just a finisher. I can already feel my hamstrings are pretty dead from the deadlifts. I find with cable stuff, you can push into a deeper level of failure. Because like I said, it does have that constant tension aspect, which helps have elasticity at the bottom of the movement that helps you drive a rep, you know? You get a little bit of that bounce at the bottom. Well, you don't get that as much with this. But it still burns like hell. Still pretty good. So yeah, the last thing I want to end with is something to do with nutrition. And a lot of times people say calories in, calories out, that's all there is to it. And I've talked at length about this subject. And the truth is that calories in, calories out is not the entire story when it comes down to fat loss or gaining muscle. And as you noticed today, all I did yesterday, I had a lot of calories still, but I had one meal of carbs. I didn't have any more starches through the day. And already I noticed I lost one rep on the bench, right? So a lot of people would say, well, what are your calories, right? If your calories are the same, it shouldn't affect your strength. But one thing I have found is that if your glycogen stores are down, and glycogen stores are largely filled with carbohydrates, right? Your body can convert fat to some glycogen, but it happens at a much slower pace. And I'm going to say that I notice that if I don't have a certain amount of carbs, my strength will go down just slightly. My strength endurance especially will go down, like successively in the sets, my reps will go down faster. So glycogen through carbohydrates or complex carbs plays a massive role in whether you can put on muscle or not. So don't underestimate the value of a carbohydrate. Some people are saying that carbohydrates have no value. Again, I'm always open to your own individual situation and all the different health things that can come up. I understand what you're saying if this is your point. But that doesn't mean that all carbs are bad. Like some carbs might work with you. Like I notice breads and pastas, like especially any North American pasta or whatever, like in bread, it doesn't work for me at all. All the pesticides and all the other crap in there, and you know, it gives me bad digestion, right? But if I have rice, like white rice, I have no problem. White rice is fine for me. Oatmeal, fine. I can eat oatmeal, no problems. So it just depends really on you and your situation. But, you know, I would say that it's ideal for you to have some carbohydrates in your diet if you're trying to put on muscle, you know. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. But, you know, if that doesn't agree with you for other health reasons, then I totally understand too. So I'm sure there's more than one way to skin a cat. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe there's another way that you can get that energy up and so forth, right? Anyway, that's what I have to say today. Thanks a lot for joining me on my workout. I did do some calves when you guys weren't looking. You didn't see it, but I did them. And yeah, I got a leg workout in, got some chest in, And now I'm going to feed the muscle with some food. Mountain. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalglandbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now.